Welcome to Rise Up Voices from the Front Lines, your window into relationships, identity, safety, emotional awareness, regulation and intelligence, unleashed potential, passion and purpose.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to RISEUP Responders, the RISEUP Phoenix Trauma and Crisis Institute's room, created for those who serve country and community in high-stress helping professions. And I'm your host, Krista Fee, and today we're starting with something foundational, not inspirational, but foundational. Because before we talk about leadership, relationships, regulation, or recovery, we have to talk about what most of you were trained to do and what you weren't. If you've spent any time in this culture, you already know this part. You didn't learn it in a classroom. You learned it on calls, deployments, scenes, shifts, and nights where there was no room for anything extra. You learned how to function when other people couldn't. You learned how to override discomfort, how to compartmentalize, especially emotions, so that the job could get done. You learned how to stay operational no matter what was happening inside of you. And this isn't dysfunction, it's adaptation, and it works until it doesn't. Because adaptation without recovery eventually becomes constriction. And what I want to name clearly right out of the gate is this. Most responders are not broken, they're narrowed. They're narrowed emotionally, relationally, physiologically, and especially in identity. And narrowing makes sense when your nervous systems learn that staying open costs too much. So this is where the conversation around resilience usually goes completely sideways. In responder culture, resilience often gets framed as toughness or endurance, having a thick skin. Don't let this get to you. Handle your own business. But toughness is not the same as resilience. Think of it this way. Toughness is the ability to stay upright under a load. Resilience is the ability to widen again after compression. These are not the same skill sets. Most of you were trained extensively in compression, but very few of you were trained in expansion. And none of that has anything to do with weakness, no matter what the culture or your inner bully has to say. This has everything to do with development. From a nervous system perspective, what you're asked to do in this work is extraordinary. You're repeatedly exposed to threat, responsibility, moral complexity, human suffering, and time pressure, often without adequate cycles of completion or repair. The nervous system responds exactly as it's designed to. It prioritizes vigilance. It suppresses what's non-essential. It narrows your field. And that narrowing is protective. It's also very expensive. Over time, what keeps you sharp on scene can make you distant at home. What keeps you decisive under pressure can make you rigid in relationships. And what keeps you functional during crisis can leave you disconnected from yourself, especially when things slow down. Again, this is not pathology, it's physiology, layered with attachment history and reinforced by culture. That's why this work matters so much. The RISEUP Resilience Framework exists because grit alone will not carry you through a career, a marriage, parenthood, leadership, or life after the uniform. Skill will carry you. The RISEUP Resilience Framework is not therapy. It's not motivational language. It's a practical, developmentally informed, nervous system aware skill set designed specifically for people who carry weight for a living. It focuses on building capacity rather than pushing endurance, widening the system after years of compression, and teaching responders how to stay effective without disappearing from themselves or the people they love. This is not emotional dumping or forced vulnerability. It's not about becoming softer or less capable. It's about developing new skill sets. The ability to recognize what state you're in, the skill to shift states when needed, the ability to stay connected without losing your edge, the skill to lead without leaking stress into every system that you touch, the ability to come home to yourself, not just your house. These are the things we're building here, and I want to be clear about something else early on. We're not talking about taking your armor away. Your armor exists for a reason. It's useful. Protection necessary for the work that you do and what you face. The problem isn't that you have this armor. The problem is wearing it everywhere, all the time, even when the environment's changed. Healthy systems know when to gear up and when to stand down. So do healthy nervous systems. What most of you struggle with is not the inevitable exposure to trauma. It's the lack of permission, language, and skill to downshift without feeling unsafe, weak, or lost when things are less exciting. So before we go any further, I want to invite you to a very simple practice, not a fix, not a regulation exercise per se, an orientation. Just notice your body right now. Notice your breath without changing it. Notice where you might be holding tension. Notice what feels guarded and what feels neutral. Now ask yourself one quiet question. What state am I in right now? Not how am I doing? Not what do I think? Rather, what state? Alert, braced, flat, focused, disconnected, settled, somewhere in between. There's no correct answer. The skill is noticing without judging, whatever descriptor comes to you. Even if right now the answer is nothing or empty. That ability to notice state is the first building block of the RISEUP Resilience Framework. You can't shift what you can't sense. Many of you were taught to ignore those signals because they interfere with performance. But the irony is that long-term performance depends on them. Another distinction that matters here is the difference between calm and numb. They often look similar from the outside, but on the inside, they're very different experiences. Calm is regulated presence. Numbness is a protective shutdown. Numbness reduces pain, but it also reduces access to joy, intimacy, curiosity, and flexibility. And it works until it doesn't. The RISEUP Resilience Framework teaches you how to access calm without having to disappear. Each pillar we'll walk through together is a capacity, not a personality trait. Relationship, emotional awareness and expression, stress reduction, identity, leadership, ignition, emotional intelligence, nervous system regulation, coping, and empowerment. If any of these feel underdeveloped, it doesn't mean that you're deficient. It means that the environment you were trained in didn't require them in the same way. Development follows demand. And I want to leave you with one reflection to carry into the week. Not to solve, just to notice. Where in my life am I relying on endurance when skill would serve me better? That might be at work, at home, in how you talk to yourself, in how you recover, in how you lead. This podcast and the book and training it accompanies are not meant to be an endpoint. They're meant to be an orientation, a way of saying There's another way to do this, and it doesn't require you to stop being who you are. This is a practice, not a performance. Progress doesn't require perfection. Awareness creates choice, and choice creates capacity. So in the next episode, we'll step into the first pillar of the RISEUP Resilience Framework, relationship. We'll talk about how connection gets disrupted in high-stress cultures, why detachment becomes the default, and how to rebuild trust without sacrificing strength or competence. You don't rise alone, and resilience isn't something you are, it's something you build. So before we close, I want to name something important. If what we're talking about here resonates, this work doesn't have to stay theoretical or individual. The RISEUP Resilience Framework was built to live inside real systems, agencies, departments, organizations, teams, and leadership cultures, not just inside individual efforts. If you are a leader, a supervisor, a trainer, coordinator, or someone tasked with taking care of people who operate under pressure, I invite you to explore bringing RISEUP Resilience into your organization through custom trainings, keynotes, workshops, and conference presentations. This work is designed to meet your people where they are, respect the culture that they come from, and build capacity without weakening operational readiness. And for those of you who want to start on your own journey or alongside your peers, the RISEUP Responder courses and community are a grounded place to begin. It's a culturally competent, confidential space to build skills, expand capacity, and reconnect with yourself and others who understand the weight of this work. If you're unsure what the right next step is, I invite you to book a compass call with me anytime. It's simply a conversation, not a commitment, to help you orient, ask questions, and decide what support makes sense for you or your organization. You don't have to figure this all out alone, and you don't have to wait until something breaks to build something stronger. You are welcome here.
Become a RISEUP Hero sponsor to provide mental wellness and crisis response resources for those who serve country and community. Join us in the RISEUP movement today.